won't find the phantom. He
G'day,
finds
this is
you.
X-Band, the Phantom Podcast. We are a website, a podcast, and a way of life. You can find us at chroniclechamber.com. I am Jermayn, and today I am joined by our US correspondent, Scott. How are you, mate?
Doing great. How about you?
Not bad. Second podcast out of three, mate. You're becoming a regular.
Do what I can.
Nah, and look, I love your work. I love your reviews with Defenders of the Earth. Now we're talking about regular issue one here. We're going to put it with our podcast series as well. Looking forward to what you're going to do with Moonstone, which will be coming out soon as well, but also with the regular Mad Cave stuff as well. And we talked before that you're going to be writing some more articles and you become our US guru of all things Phantom, which will be amazing. So yeah, really appreciate what you do, and you bring a different and a very in-depth look to the comics as well. So I appreciate the work that you've been doing.
Well, it's nice to hear. Just love comics, so and obviously the Phantom.
Yeah, no, it's good. Now, at the time of this release, the regular Phantom series by Mad Cave Studios is out in shops, and thanks to the good folks at Mad Cave, we are able to give you a review of the first issue. Now, please be aware there's going to be spoilers. We will be discussing and we will be spoiling the. By the time this comes out, the comic would have been out for a day or two. So yeah. If you are in Australia, you can get it from your local comic book shops. I believe the Toowoomba shop in Queensland has it in. The Perth one, Quality Comics, has. And then I believe there's a couple in Victoria as well that will be bringing it out as well. So there's several corners of Australia that you will be able to get it in. And of course, it'll be fairly regular in comic book shops in the USA as well. Isn't that right, Scott?
Yeah, they have a good distribution system at Man Cave, so I don't think there's going to be any problem getting it.
Awesome. So now we've got the creators. So I'm going to talk about Ray, and then you're going to talk about the artist, Russell. Now we are discussing. Hopefully, we'll have some podcasts out with them soon, with some of these creators to kind of get a bit of an idea and get a little bit of an insight with them. So Ray Fawkes is the writer. He's a critical acclaimed author of the comics and graphics novels Under Winter, One Soul, The Spectral Engine, and Junction True, as well as Batman Eternal, Constantine, and Gotham by Midnight, which is DC. He's also done issues for Wolverine and Murder World for Marvel, a couple for Dark Horse, and he's done some for Mad Cave as well. He's won several awards like an Eisner, a Harvey, and a Schuster, as well as a WALSA award winner. Now, Ray has sent through a quote about this series. Seeing the incredibly positive reaction to the free comic book day issue of The Phantom only got me more excited to take part in making this series happen. The Phantom and all of his supporting cast have such an unbridled sense of fun and adventure, and I can't help but love them all. I feel like readers, I feel like readers will see that on every page.
And Russell Olson was born and raised in eastern Missouri, but has lived in the United Kingdom for the past 16 years. He has worked for 2000 AD, The Darkest Judge, Mad Cave Studios, A Phone Call Away, Flash Gordon Quarterly. He also worked on Pastime, which recently wrapped up, and various UK and US small presses. He's the editor of Scrawl, the comics magazine, and the creator of the award-winning pulp sci-fi series Gateway City. He lives on the Hampshire-Sussex border with his wife, daughter, and various fish. Um, what he told us was from longtime fans to first-time readers, the responses I've received for the free comic book day issue have been overwhelming. I couldn't be more thrilled to be working with Ray and the whole crew at Mad Cave to deliver a great The Phantom book. I love pulp storytelling and swashbuckling adventure, and there's no better character in comics to explore those themes than the Ghost Who Walks. I'm jazzed for folks to see the new series.
Awesome. Now, Stephen was unable to join us, but he does love his plots. He loves reading them. So he is going to read the plot for us, and then we are going to touch upon some points to raise, the big issue, and then we're going to talk about our overall thoughts. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, fellas. Here's a plot to Mad Cave Studios, issue number 1 of The Phantom. The story takes place in modern times, but for long-time readers, it is set before Garan has become the Bandar chief. Garan's dad is dying, and the Phantom is doing his best to bring comfort to the family, especially to his oldest friend Garan. As a reminiscence about childhood mischief, a plane, flying low and in trouble, hurtles through and crash lands nearby. When the Phantom investigates and checks the cargo, his worst fears are realised, and he knows that whoever owns the plane won't be too far away. Can the Phantom protect his Bandar friends from the evil coming their way, or will the Phantom's oldest and deadliest foe bring the Bandar to their knees?
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Now, we are going to touch upon the elephant in the room in a second, but before we get into the elephant, we are going to talk about some of our other thoughts. So Steve, what are your thoughts? What do you like? Did you like the artwork? Let us know your thoughts.
Right. Here are some of the things that I liked about the story. I don't mind the modern take. It is 2025 after all. The Bandar village has been modernised, but still very much one with the jungle, so I don't mind that. It's an interesting story, one I don't think I've seen done in this way. It has really ramped up the stakes, being set so close to the Phantom's home. I love the detail on Freddie Williams' cover. I think the action sequences are done well, and reading the series proposal by the author gives me hope that the story will be done right. A few dislikes. The first depiction of the Phantom on page 1, panel 1, does not look good. That gets better throughout the comic, but whenever there's a full body shot of him, he just looks overweight. The Bandar, they're supposed to be pygmies. They're allowed to be short. The juxtaposition of the text, the voice of the Phantom as he's telling the story, is not consistent in the text boxes. When he's telling the story to Diana, he speaks as if he's writing in the Chronicles. She knows who the Bandar are. I just think a better storytelling device could have been done there. Now, these are all minor gripes compared to page 3. How that got past KFS is beyond me and undoes a lot of the great work setting the Phantom up as a unique character and not just a Batman in the jungle.
Scott, so start us off. We will touch upon the elephant in the room in a second, but let's go over some initial thoughts. So what are your thoughts on the artwork, Scott?
I love the artwork. I think it's I don't know, I find it very beautiful. It's a little like, it leans towards like the comic cartoon aesthetic a little bit, but it's got some great action. It's, it very much pops. They use their paneling well. Like, it's just a well-rounded, well-told story, and I do like that. There's like the penciling with the Phantom, like, it's a lot comes through his facial features, and I do appreciate that. We can see kind of how he reacts to things, and his emotions come through a little bit, which is kind of hard to do for someone who always wears a mask.
Yeah, always wears a mask. We will touch upon that in a second.
Yeah.
Look, I tend to agree. Like, I like the artwork. I like the flow of it. There's one or two scenes where I think some of the proportions are a little bit maybe off or wrong, but I can accept that. I'm not like concerned or kind of worried about that, because those type of things, that kind of happens. I think it's, we kind of see that also in the previous Defenders of the Earth series as well. So like I can live with that. One of the things that I kind of like about the series, and I think it shows well in the artwork, but also the storytelling, is there's fun involved with it. Like straight away, like in the free comic book comic, at the end of it, we see the plane coming down, and then straight away in issue 1, the Phantom's battling these guys with machetes and guns, and you see this scene here where the guy's fighting, and then in the reflection of the glasses, you see him, the whole slam evil type of pose and stuff like that. And then, straight away you get 2 pages of action, and then there's like a pause, and then the Phantom's with Diana, and it's kind of like, there's some fun involved with the artwork. You've got a lot of scenery, a lot of like the jungle action, animals and stuff like that. So there feels like there's some fun involved with the artwork. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, totally. And you were just on that last page with kind of the scenery and everything. I feel like one of the strongest points is the setting. I think
Yeah.
I like the way the animals are drawn. I like a lot of the foliage and backdrop that we see. And, I think it being in the States, a lot of comics are focused more in a concrete jungle. So it's kind of nice to break away and, see this type of world that the Phantom's in. And I mean, a lot of it's world building. It's issue 1. They're really trying to like set that scene for everybody. I think they do a really good job of it here. And I mean, yeah, your comment about proportions, I do remember that. I think there was like page 9 was one of the ones where there was a an issue I had with proportions, but it's not like enough to throw me off or anything. Yeah, it's right there. It's that middle panel on the left where I feel like there's just a couple times where Phantom looks a little like a brick. But overall, I guess it's kind of hard to, have everything look a certain way. So it's just, it happens. Not a big deal. Overall, I do really like the tone and the brightness, and, it's the energy, I think. It is
Yeah.
totally a different vibe than a lot of comics that I read.
And also, it's got a different vibe to, say, the Defenders of the Earth, which is more of that
Totally.
darker, grungy, gritty type of look. Where this has got this energy is a great way of doing it. Like the artwork's got a similar style as a Lauren Marshall, who's a cover artist for Frew, where there's that. It's almost got like that. It's almost got like that Spider-Man type of energy kind of flow. Like, like Spider-Man's always moving, he's flying, he's flowing, he's swinging. It almost got kind of like that feelness to it where the Phantom's always moving, and there's that energy is such a great way of doing it.
Yeah, totally. No, I would agree.
One of the things that I really loved about um this comic. Now, there's a lot I love about it. There's something that I am like a little bit that I am concerned about, which we'll go about that in a second, but I want to focus on what I do like. And that is the portrayal of the Phantom and the Bandar village. I feel the creators have that very well done. Like a lot of creators get stuck in the fact is that the Phantom is the Lord of the jungle. He's not the Lord. He's their protector. He's their friend. He's, he's a regular guy to the Banda, and you see it here. I feel this is a great thing here. You got this Banda guy here, almost mimicking, mocking the Phantom. He's got his purple shirt pulled up, and he's got his mask, and they're having fun and they're watching it, and I feel, and then you've got here where, sorry, let me zoom in here as well, where you've got, this kid who's still got his shirt on there. He's pretending to beat up the Phantom. And there's that feel that, in reading the story, and, we're at the start, so we haven't even got to the end where, we see, an impossible situation with the Phantom. But you're seeing the love that the Phantom has for the Banda, and then you see the love that the Banda has for the Phantom, that they are family. And I feel Ray and Russell have done a great job in understanding that delicate situation. Because look, let's face it, we're in a wokeism world where, it's almost dangerous having a white person with a bunch of colored people. It can very quickly become, oh, but they've done a brilliant job at harmonizing them.
Yeah, and actually, I never really thought about it that way with like the tone between like him and his relationship with the Bandar, and like the race factor, like portraying it into, white saviory. But I think you're right. And I think it's important. I do like that fun energy in his relationship because I think one of the things it does really well is it separates the Phantom from a lot of the other heroes that people may, read books about or know about. It's like, we've talked about a couple times already, trying to distinguish him and make sure he's not just another Batman, but in the jungle. And I think having this where he's not brooding, where he has this really strong relationship with the Bandar and everyone around him, and he's friends, and he's grown up with them. It definitely separates his character from like characters like Batman and distinguishes him as his own hero. And I think it's very important that we see that and we spend a good deal of the issue, focusing on that because obviously we get to when the villain shows up and everything's kind of flipped on its head.
Yeah. And I think the scene of them on the roof, like we see it in action, but then the 2 pages of on the roof really establishes that a little bit more where, they're reminiscing growing up, being in trouble and it really does do that. So I really do like that. I also liked how and I feel sometimes Phantom Men and also through stories. So this is the Swedish stories and the Australian stories. I feel sometimes they depict Africa and Bengala as too backward, where they don't show it as progressive enough. Where I feel, like they've got houses, they've got studies. Now, I know that might be a little bit jarring for some. In our discussion, Dan Fraser kind of had a question about that. He was unable to join us for this podcast. But see, I'm of the opposite opinion where I actually like that. Like, why can't people in Africa have a study? Why can't they have doctorates? Why can't they be, like why not? They're the human beings. They can do this. Um there I remember there was a old classic story by Wilson McCoy. So we're going back to the 50s. I think it was, can't remember what it was, what story it was, but there was a jungle chief where he had like 4 doctorates and you see him and he's sitting down and he's opening a book on physics and stuff like that. So Lee Falk did that back in the 50s, which was super progressive. He had in the 60s, he had Luaga and President Garanja of Ivory Lana and Bengala going to England and studying and become lawyers and becoming doctors and coming back to Africa and freeing their countries and stuff like that. So if Lee Falk could do that in the 50s and 60s, I think it's good that we can do this 70 years later.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's like it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the Bandar tribe and and Phantom's relationship with them is, it's very easy to like turn this into like a really old-timey safari story where it's, part of it's like, oh, look at them. They're so backwards, or, they're not, their home structures aren't like just regular houses. And so, and I feel like that's kind of a dangerous territory to tread into and can really kill your potential audience. So, I think, it is the 21st century, seeing how people live across the world, it's not really anything like those old safari tales. So having them, having this village look more modernized, I feel like fits with what's more realistic now.
Mm.
And, it avoids kind of those tropes that, might be a little discomforting or uneasy.
Kind of paused on this page here. I love this page here of the Phantom and Devil kind of jumping and you're kind of seeing the worm vision of them jumping over you. So there's some great artwork in here. Now we're on here, so this is a great point to actually raise this point of the storytelling, and that's the two perspective storytelling between the Phantom and later on the Sing Pirate. Now, I reckon this is great. I enjoy kind of getting behind the view of the Phantom, which is what we can see with the Phantom thinking in purple, and then later on we will see the Sing Pirates doing it as well, how he's thinking. So how like you're a much wider comic reader than what I am. You read more than just the Phantom, which I tend to do. So is this used often in comics?
No, this is actually kind of unique. I mean, there are comics out there that do this. It's not to say that there aren't, but by and large, most of the time, it is one perspective.
Mm.
It's you read a hero's book, Spider-Man, Batman, Hulk, whatever. It is typically from one character's, whether it's an observer the whole issue or it's that main character's just internal monologue. So having this switch is, surprised me when I read it, and I thought it was totally cool because we see this. He's leading the Sing. And the Singh Brotherhood here, he's kind of corporate looking, and it actually fits his tone of his narration where, it's not like, when we say pirate, it's not like this old school pirate, perception people may have. It's like, this is kind of like a corporate overlord in a way. He's running a criminal organization. He's well dressed. He thinks in like corporate speak. He's talking about employees here, and damages and things like that. So it's kind of interesting because it helps us learn more about him, but it also sets this, you know, sets what we'll see in the coming issues of these two perspectives kind of battling back and forth. And obviously their relationship with the Bandar, because here he comes in just taking over. He acts like the benevolent, ruler coming into town, but it's just a ruse that quickly fades while he tries to, force his will upon him.
And I think the way the Sing Pirate is portrayed, he's ruthless, but he's also practical as well. You kind of see him swing between the two. Like, we're going to kill you all, but then there's almost that human element that you kind of see for a fleeting little second as well, and so it's well done.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes. It's just that's I think one of the highest things I could say about like an issue number one. Like the Free Comic Book Day issue was good. I liked it, but issue number one really kind of hooked me in because now I got to see where the rest of the story goes. I got to see how this relationship evolves, how the Phantom and Asif Singh, battle it out.
Yeah. And it's a great way to end issue one as well.
So as far as the elephant in the room,
Yes, let's get
did
to
we
the
want
elephant
to
in
touch
the
on
room.
that?
Okay. We'll get to the elephant. Now, again, if you're on YouTube, you might want to look away because we all know that he who looks upon the Phantom's face will die a horrible death. So, with that in mind, on page what? Page 3, we see the Phantom's eyes. Now, unfortunately, I've now reached a point in my Phantom thing where I'm now considered an old Phantom fan. I'm considered an old fart, a Falkist. As someone probably a little bit newer to the Phantom community, what were your thoughts about this?
I get it. Like, it's a rule. You don't show his face. I also think that this is gonna fly over so many heads in the States. Like, it's probably gonna go unnoticed because I feel like the intent here is to humanize him and make him relatable and like, my only issue with it came near the end when they do the showcase of the characters and they kind of have him unmasked again, like at the end of the book, is his design outside of the mask looked a little too Bruce Wayne-ish to me on that last panel, and I was like, hey, like, let's not do that. But I don't know. I guess it comes down to how often they make a habit of this because it is kind of weird. Out of all the Phantom stuff I've read, I don't, can't say I've seen his face. It's usually,
Yeah.
he's in costume or he's in a disguise or something, or it's, he's looking away, and I might see a silhouette. But I think at least in the States, it's just gonna kind of fly over heads, and no one will say anything of it. It's the international community, I think, that's gonna call this out and
Now
have
you're
a fit.
I will try not to have a fit in front of you. My family's actually not home, so me having a fit, that will be rather awkward while you watch me half a world away while my family can't rescue me. Um, now, you raise a good point. You raised two good points, so I'll quickly touch upon this. This comic series is primarily for the US readers. All right. It will make its way internationally, down under Sweden, India, Australia, and stuff like that. The old school fans, whether they're in the US or not, are not going to like this. When you talk about how it shows the human element of the Phantom, the fact that he can bleed, like, you know, we see the Phantom bleeding, we see the Phantom needing attention and stuff like that. That is a very good point you raised. Now, back in, I would like to say about 2002, 2003, for that era, Graham Nolan did actually something very, very similar. He had just been blown up by a suicide bomber, and you see the Phantom laying down in the skull throne, in the skull cave, unmasked while the Phantom is looking after him. Now, back in the day, I actually reached out to Graham Nolan and talked to him. Now, we have a podcast with Graham Nolan, and I think it's about 150, 160. I actually talked to him about that again. So that would have been probably about 15 years after he had actually done that. And the point he raised back then when he first did it, and then the point that he raised back in the podcast again, was that the same thing as you. It shows us the human element of the Phantom. Now, I get that. I understand that. But it is ingrained Phantom lore that you don't show the Phantom's face. Now, there's ways around it, in my opinion, and that is to use shadow. You can, he doesn't, you know, he can have, you know, like I'm looking here now, like, you know, if you're on YouTube, you can see it. I've got, you know, you can have light effects where you can't see my eyes, but I'm unmasked because I've got the light shining on my head, which has got a natural shadow underneath it, so you can't see that I've got blue eyes. So, you know, you can do shadow work like that. And I think you could have still gotten the same effect of showing the human element of the Phantom, i.e., him bleeding, him being hurt, and not showing his eyes, and keeping us old farts, us old Falkists, us old fuddy-duddies happy. We might only be the 10, 20% of the market who will actually read this comic, but I think we are an important element, and I do think Mad Cave and King Features, who at the end of the day have to approve this comic, who are the overseers of the comic, and I think they have made a mistake here. Now,
I mean, right out of the starting gate too. It's kind of difficult. I hope, you know, maybe they can change. Well, I guess hard to say because we are talking about this early. So who knows?
yeah, who knows? So, you know, yeah, there is a small chance that what you're seeing here might be fixed by the time it goes to print, but I don't think we're going to see that. It might be fixed in the trade paperback. I don't know. Now, I'm going to go my rant one step further, and this is going to go towards Tony DePaul, who actually recently, in the last 2 years, actually showed the Phantom's eyes in another Phantom Daily story. Now, I'm going to go one step further, and well, I'm not going to say it. I wonder if this would have happened if Tony DePaul didn't do it in the Daily story, because people would have seen that in the Daily story and go, well, if he can do it, I can do it in this comic. Where if he didn't do it and he upheld that law, would have the law been upheld in here? So
I mean,
I'm gonna leave that there. I'll let you respond, but I'm a little bit disappointed.
That makes sense. And actually, I think you raise a good point because I feel like the strip, is kind of like the Bible per se of like the Phantoms. So that's like the big, the other series and stuff by the other comic companies, those are their own thing. But like if it's in the strip, then it's kind of like I think a better argument. It's almost like having a law passed.
Yeah. And I just feel that, and I understand why Tony did it because it was the dying of the Phantom. And, in theory, you could probably go one step further and saying we see his eyes because at that point he stops being the Phantom because he is dying. So we get to see his face. I understand that. That's, totally in depth. We've discussed this in articles, podcasts, social media, and all that type of stuff. But I just wonder if that didn't happen, would this happen? And I just feel like they kind of go hand in hand. And at the end of the day, I don't blame the creators. I blame King Features for not, because this would have been approved by them and they should have gone, oh, hang on, can we use some shadow? So look, that's the eyes. We're not exactly happy with it, but overall, we're pretty happy with it, right?
Yeah, no, I really like it.
We like the art direction. We like the relationship. We like the two-tone perspective. It leaves us in a nice cliffhanger. It's got the story tropes, which happens in, everywhere. We've got drug running. We've got friendships. We haven't even talked really about Diana, so maybe, that will be something we can address next time. But look, fans, we understand that the eyes is going to be a bit of a concern for some fans, but I hope that will not taint your opinion of the overall comic, because I think it's a very good story. I'm very positive about where this is going to head.
Definitely, and I agree. Totally.
So look, fans, go out, buy it, give it a go. Give us 1 or 2 issues, give it a go, see how you go. Scott, you're going to be reviewing every issue as it comes out, so look forward to how that's going. Listen, thank you for listening or watching us. Our website is chroniclechamber.com and our email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com. We would love to hear your thoughts, feedbacks, and opinions on our social media platforms or over at the YouTube channels. For those people who love listening to our voices in their ears while they drive or exercise, you can subscribe to us via your favourite podcast apps, including iTunes or Spotify. Thank you. Please get in contact with us. And as always, happy Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming.
This man cannot die. The Phantom. The ghost who walks. The Phantom. Enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom. He finds